The heat is on. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Charity, disaster. Reputational, disaster. Professional, disaster. Financial, disaster. It's all coming together.
Tom Bower has spent years digging into Harry and Meghan's marriage, and not long ago, he summed up his view with a single word that got a lot of people talking: untenable. That one word sparked fresh debate and raised even more questions about what the future could look like for the couple. According to Bower, as long as Harry remains married to Meghan, the idea of the pair moving back to Britain is not just difficult or unlikely, it's simply untenable.
At war over money. They need $10 million now.
Charles has made it very clear that he wants Harry back. You know, we saw it in Harry's book, Don't Make My Life a Misery, but Don't Make My Final Years a Misery, boys. Charles's dearest wish is to be reconciled with his son.
Behind that strong statement is a financial picture that many commentators believe helps explain why this story keeps grabbing headlines year after year. Bower has estimated that the lifestyle Harry and Meghan have built in California could cost somewhere between $3 million and $6 million every year to maintain. That eye-catching figure sits right at the center of the discussion and continues to fuel curiosity about their long-term plans. This is the picture that several royal biographers and commentators have been describing for some time. By many reports, Harry appears interested in strengthening his connection to Britain and rebuilding parts of his life there.
Of course, there are constant bust-ups, I guess is the point that I'm making. And of course, there is tension over Harry's desire to spend time in the United Kingdom, but Meghan knows she needs to come back too. She's going to have to turn back on her word, and that is for financial reasons.
Need $3 million just to survive each year, just to meet their minimum security needs. So I really think we can't frame this in any other way other than a pay for play, a desperate, grab for cash. And I think that just comes down to it, that they really need the bucks.
Bower portrays him as someone who may feel frustrated by his current situation, worried about his standing in the UK, and dealing with a reality in America that may be different from what he once expected. Meghan, on the other hand, is often described as having little interest in returning to Britain. While one seems pulled toward London, the other appears fully focused on life in Montecito. Some longtime royal watchers argue that the biggest hurdle may not be the palace and may not even be King Charles. Instead, they believe the most significant challenge could be much closer to home. That claim is a major part of the debate, but it should be viewed as opinion rather than established fact. What makes this topic so interesting is that Bower is not the only person raising these questions. Other commentators have started asking many of the same things, and the conversation has only grown louder.
It is very interesting, which I was surprised by, and comes up early in the Betrayal book, is when a very, very famous member of the British establishment, really a household name, is asked by the Queen to explain to Meghan before the wedding what life will be like. And that person goes to visit her every 3 or 4 weeks in Kensington Palace. And after the third and fourth visit, tells the Queen that Meghan has absolutely no intention of staying in Britain after the wedding, and there's a lot of trouble ahead. Of course, it was too late to do anything, but they saw it long before that glorious day in June. And I'm afraid that that is her problem. She is very calculating and very ruthless and very self-promoting, but she's taken on more in the end than she can.
The financial side remains a huge part of the story because so many details seem to lead back to money. Harry is certainly not struggling financially, and that is an important point to recognize from the start. Even so, questions about expenses, lifestyle, and future plans continue to keep people watching this royal drama very closely. When Harry turned 30 inches 2014, reports indicated that he inherited around £10 million from Princess Diana's estate. Then, when he celebrated his 40th birthday in September 2024, reports suggested he received another major payment, said to be about £8 million from a trust that had been set up years earlier for royal descendants. Those figures immediately caught attention and added another layer to the ongoing conversation about his finances. That means Harry entered his California era with substantial inherited wealth already behind him. But there's one important detail that often gets lost in the headlines. No matter how impressive a fortune may look on paper,
Harry and Meghan want to destroy. They might want to be there, but they want to destroy. That's why they're going ahead. That's why they're putting on smiley faces. That's why they're doing all sorts of things. But I don't believe in what they want to do at all. I think they're crooks and nasty people to try and win.
No one would ever believe it.
No one would ever believe it.
large expenses can stack up fast when they keep coming year after year. There's the Montecito mansion to maintain, which is no small expense. There are security costs following changes to previous arrangements. Add in travel, household operations, professional advisors, and other high-profile lifestyle expenses, and the numbers can start climbing quickly. When annual spending potentially reaches several $1 million, even major financial resources can face pressure over time. Then there are staff costs and legal battles, and unlike many royal rumors, some of these figures have been publicly discussed. Court records showed that Harry's legal case involving a major newspaper publisher included approved budgets of roughly £4 million for each side.
And now Harry has suddenly woken up and gone, oh, actually, yeah, you've got to have this stuff called money. It's this folded paper that's in your trousers, and that's how you get stuff. And I didn't really know that until I left England and stopped being a member of the royal family. So Meghan's told me I need to get more of this folding paper, which has got Dad's face on it. And we could also get some of the American paper, which is green, and that's got like a big S on it with lines down the middle. Anyhow, Meghan said she wants more of this colourful paper, and that we're running out of the colourful folding paper that's in your trousers. Yeah.
Reports also indicated that an earlier settlement involving another newspaper publisher was worth more than £10 million. These are not figures coming from internet gossip or social media chatter. They are numbers that have been referenced through legal proceedings and public records. That's why, when Tom Bower estimates that the Sussexes could require between $3 million and $6 million annually to support their current lifestyle, some observers do not see it as an over-the-top claim. Instead, they view it as an attempt to calculate the realities of maintaining a very expensive lifestyle in the public eye. The question many people ask is simple: can income continue to stay ahead of expenses? At the end of the day, that's the challenge facing anyone, whether they are royal or not.
Not a clue. It's a catastrophe. They need $10 million now. Because you know as well as I do, folks, that you've got to have a buffer. You cannot be down to your last dollar. And yes, there are some savings. There's a little bit of money from the books fair. He got 20 million for that. There is the inheritance from Diana and from the Queen Mother, who is the mother of the late Queen Elizabeth. He got millions when he turned 30.
When spending remains high, financial pressure can eventually build if new income does not arrive at the same pace. One of the biggest challenges with celebrity careers is that earnings are not always predictable. A massive deal can bring in huge revenue, but then there may be a long gap before the next opportunity appears. The Netflix agreement helped create an image of financial strength during the early years of Harry and Meghan's California journey, but even blockbuster contracts eventually come to an end. That's where things can become more complicated. When a lifestyle carries multi-million-dollar costs every year, making sudden adjustments is far from easy. And that reality continues to spark debate among royal watchers and commentators alike. The bills don't stop, the commitments keep rolling in, and someone has to make sure everything stays on track. This is also where the financial side of the story starts colliding with the relationship side, in a way that many commentators find incredibly intriguing. According to numerous royal watchers, Britain is not necessarily seen as the place where Meghan's biggest professional opportunities would naturally grow.
Harry keeps arguing that they need taxpayer-funded security, and you're sitting back looking at Meghan dripping in gold, posting pictures of her closet, posting pictures of her children, saying, are you not increasing the odds of somebody targeting you by putting your wealth and your children and your home on full display?
If that view is accurate, it creates a tricky situation for the couple. The future Harry may prefer, and the future that could offer the strongest business potential, might exist on completely different sides of the Atlantic. That point becomes even more important as the story develops. Tom Bower has described the couple's situation as an unfortunate crossroads, and that description has sparked a great deal of debate. His argument is fairly direct. He notes that Harry remains a member of the royal family and still has a place in the line of succession, even after stepping back from royal duties. In Bower's interpretation, Harry's sense of purpose was never primarily built around making money. He was raised within an institution where public service, duty, and responsibility were central values. Financial success may have been part of life.
It's what happens if you marry a guy who's not that bright and who has no discernible talent and whose only value are two things: inherited cash, which he didn't earn, and selling the family secrets. Well, both of those sources of income look like a busted flush, and the cost of their lives is extraordinary. You're looking at $3-4 million a year, easy. $3-4 million, potentially $5 million. The mortgage alone on their Montecito mansion is $500,000. And don't forget, interest rates are going up. So if they have to negotiate again, if they have to do a new deal, good luck.
But it was never presented as the main goal or driving force. Meghan, according to Bower's assessment, has approached life from a different perspective. He argues that her ambitions have long been connected to career growth, business ventures, personal projects, and building a strong public profile. Those priorities are not necessarily incompatible, but they can create challenges when different long-term goals begin competing for attention. That's where things can get complicated. When two people enter a marriage with different priorities, those differences may not stand out right away. A major Netflix deal lands, public interest stays high, new projects make headlines, and from the outside, everything can look smooth and stable.
When they left the United Kingdom 6 years ago, this was the plan, a sort of failed deal with Netflix, everybody hating you and being a kind of laughingstock and being a social media influencer, basically. Like that, as I recall, was not the plan, right? The plan was this whole new model of service. They were going to show the Queen didn't have any idea about service. They were going to show her how it was done.
But if major opportunities begin slowing down, the situation can start looking very different, and new questions can quickly emerge. According to Bower's analysis, the couple could eventually feel pulled in separate directions. Harry appears drawn toward the identity, history, and connections that Britain represents. Meanwhile, other priorities may point toward a very different future path. Meghan is often portrayed as focused on the opportunities California offers, the ability to launch ventures, develop new ideas, expand her brand, and pursue projects on her own terms. For supporters, that represents independence and freedom. For critics, it raises questions about how those goals fit alongside Harry's reported desire to strengthen ties with Britain.
Sources say that the couple are so unhappy that it resulted in a massive bust-up over their plans this summer. I was the first reporter to reveal the strains in the marriage in Montecito. The mainstream media has been very slow to catch up, but Heat magazine has gone there this week with a front-page cover story revealing the specific argument was about Harry's demands for Meghan to return to the United Kingdom.
What keeps this discussion alive is that it goes beyond Bower alone. Several royal commentators who have followed the family for years have raised similar questions through their own analysis. Bower simply happens to be one of the loudest voices making the argument, which is why his comments continue generating attention and stirring debate among royal observers today. In fact, Some royal commentators were raising these questions long before many of today's heated debates even started. That's what makes this situation so interesting. It's not just about one person making a prediction. It's that several experienced observers have arrived at similar conclusions through different perspectives and years of following the royal family. So if Harry truly wants a stronger connection to Britain, why not simply move back? According to various biographers and commentators,
This insider has said the marriage is strong. This is what they said. They love each other. This isn't about divorce or separation. It's about Meghan pushing Harry to adapt to a world where they can't rely on royal status or inherited wealth forever. What, is Meghan deluded or what? Because Harry is never going to become commercially successful. Because beyond his royal meal ticket, there's nothing.
the answer may be much more complicated than it looks from the outside. Their view is that the biggest obstacle is not logistics, security concerns, or public opinion. Instead, they argue that Meghan has little interest in returning to Britain on a permanent basis. Royal biographer Angela Levin has spoken about this topic in her own commentary. Her interpretation is that Harry and Meghan may still value some level of connection to royal life, but only if that relationship fits their own vision and goals. As Levin has suggested, they may prefer roles they can help shape and influence, rather than traditional positions that operate entirely within the monarchy's established structure. That point may help explain why the situation appears locked in place. The monarchy has historically functioned through a highly organized system. Duties are assigned, expectations are clear.
Meghan flipped, and a normal argument turned into a showdown. Tensions are at an all-time high. Now, you'll remember Meghan returned from Geneva, and there was a big song and dance made about the couple's wedding anniversary. I think that was part of the Flood the Zone strategy, which was desperately designed to sort of say, nothing happened, it doesn't matter that only 10 people showed up. But at the same time, perhaps it is because she's even trying to convince herself that things were on.
And members are generally expected to work within that framework. It is not typically an institution where individuals design entirely new versions of their roles. According to reports and public accounts discussed over the years, Meghan is often said to associate her time in Britain with one of the most difficult periods of her adult life. If that is the case, it creates a sharp contrast between the couple's reported outlooks. One partner may see Britain as a place connected to family, tradition, and personal purpose. The other may view it through the lens of difficult experiences and memories they would rather leave behind. Think back to some of their public appearances earlier this year. During official visits and high-profile events, they appeared united, smiling for photographers, and presenting a strong image of partnership.
When he was writing Spare, that's when they were aligned in purpose. They were both trying to put stain on the royal family. They all didn't, Harry and Meghan didn't want to show them any grace. They wanted to completely rag on their life in the UK. But now Harry has turned over, and now he, I believe, is feeling very regretful. And now they're no longer aligned in purpose, and they will continue to clash. This is the beginning of many more arguments. And the question then becomes, how long can they sustain the relationship no longer aligned in purpose?
Everything looked polished, coordinated, and carefully managed. By most accounts, they remain very capable of doing that whenever public events require it. But those appearances only tell part of the story. What commentators such as Levin and Bauer focus on is what happens once the events end. The cameras disappear, and everyday life resumes. That is where they believe differences in priorities could become more noticeable. Levin has also discussed reports suggesting that Harry may be interested in maintaining a more active connection to royal life. It's important to treat that topic carefully and rely on publicly reported information rather than speculation. According to those reports, Harry has explored ways to strengthen that connection, while accounts suggest the institution's overall position has remained largely unchanged. Many commentators describe the situation in a simple way.
Can you describe Harry now compared to the Harry you knew? How would you characterize Harry in 2026?
I think he's a nasty, spiteful liar. thinks only of himself, terrified of Meghan, and that he wants to get the royal family switched out so he can get switched in and give Meghan the best job ever. I think he wants her to be queen. I think I've told you that before. But with Harry, he's determined that everybody thinks that she is as amazing as he does, but he's got it all wrong.
A marriage can handle disagreements, and couples regularly work through different goals and ambitions. However, challenges can become much harder to manage when two people appear to picture very different futures in very different places. Finding common ground is rarely easy when the destinations being discussed are separated by an entire ocean. That is one reason why this debate continues to generate so much attention, with royal watchers closely examining every new development for clues about what comes next. At some point, someone may have to adjust their expectations, but based on the reporting and commentary so far, neither side appears eager to make that move. That's where the story takes another intriguing turn, because the focus shifts away from current events and toward claims that some commentators say were being discussed years ago.
She made some very, very poor strategic errors, thinking she could profit from the title without any consequence, without paying the dues. And of course, in the end, I have no doubt there'll come a day when they both lose their titles and their children too, because they will just be forced to go too far for their own survival. And at that moment, the same will happen to them as what's happened to Prince Andrew.
Long before the latest wave of speculation, biographer Andrew Loney spoke about reported conversations that allegedly took place before Harry and Meghan's wedding. According to Loney, certain individuals within royal circles had concerns about the relationship from the very beginning. His claim was that private doubts existed over whether the marriage would succeed in the long term, and that some people believed major challenges could eventually surface. There are, of course, different ways to look at that. One view is that it's easy for people to make confident predictions after problems become public. Another view is that some observers may have noticed potential warning signs long before the wider public started paying attention. That debate continues to divide royal watchers to this day. No matter where someone stands, it's hard to ignore when an earlier prediction is brought back into the spotlight and later compared to current events. That's one reason these comments continue generating attention years after they were first made. For some observers, it raises questions about whether concerns that once seemed minor now deserve a second look.
That's the truth. It's always been nothing. Meghan doesn't want to see people who she either no longer finds useful or people she thinks are not going to go along with the grift anymore. And the royals saw right through her most of the time. And once she could get out, she doesn't want to face them. She's a coward in many ways. She doesn't want to have people, especially when she's interacting with Harry, people who know the real Harry, the Harry before Meghan, and her seeing them interact. Like, she wants this control and she wants to always be the victim. And so she has, I think, in many ways concocted this whole, again, crazy scenario where they're under constant threat so that she has this convenient out to actually see the people that she should.
This is also where many people begin examining the public narrative that has surrounded the couple for years. Whenever reports, rumors, or speculation about difficulties appeared, the response often followed a familiar pattern. The public repeatedly heard that Harry and Meghan remained united, committed, and stronger than ever. Representatives have consistently rejected claims that the marriage is facing serious trouble. Meghan has also spoken publicly about her confidence in the future of the relationship, and it's important to remember that nobody outside the marriage truly knows what happens behind closed doors. Any analysis from commentators remains exactly that, outside analysis, not confirmed fact. Still, there can sometimes be a difference between public statements and how outside observers interpret public developments. In recent months, some commentators have highlighted several events that they believe raise fresh questions.
Never seen somebody try so hard to prove that they're not the most unpopular person in the world.
Someone who fled England because she needed her privacy.
Yeah.
Never let us forget that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, it's absolutely astonishing. And then, of course, the publication of all her very top secret wedding photographs.
Oh, yeah.
To mark the 8th anniversary. That as well, absolutely another invasion of her privacy. I mean, she is literally digging and digging and digging, looking for something to get attention, and probably can't understand why there isn't a huge wave of adoration for her. She's actually puzzled why people don't love her, and that makes it even more interesting.
They point to the couple marking 8 years of marriage with a video tribute rather than a major public appearance together. Others note Meghan's continued focus on her own projects, while Harry has continued speaking about Britain, his charitable work, and his connections there. Most observers are not describing a dramatic split or public fallout. In fact, many see something far more complex. Rather than open conflict, they describe two people who may still care deeply about each other while being pulled toward different visions of what the future should look like. That distinction is important. According to this interpretation, the story is less about confrontation and more about distance gradually developing as priorities evolve.
One hand, a group of people who are absolutely convinced that King Charles is working behind the scenes via this new Deputy Private Secretary, Theo Rycroft, to try and bring Harry and even Meghan Markle back into the royal fold. The view, Angela, is that they are politically aligned, that King Charles III wants his legacy to be about union, not to be about the divorce.
Harry and Meghan are often portrayed as standing at an important crossroads, with each holding tightly to goals and values that matter deeply to them. The challenge, according to these commentators, is figuring out whether those goals can continue moving in the same direction. And the next chapter of this story may arrive sooner than many expect. Another significant moment is already approaching. Harry is expected to return to Britain for an upcoming Invictus Games-related event, a project strongly associated with him, and one that has received praise from supporters and critics alike.
Palace plot to reunite Prince Harry and Prince William is going to fail. This story has really divided the royal.
That visit is already drawing attention, with many royal watchers eager to see whether it offers any new clues about the road ahead. When that visit finally takes place, many observers will be watching very closely for any sign of where this story could be heading next. And that's where the biggest question of all comes into focus. It's not whether Harry will attend the event most people expect that he will. The real question is much simpler, yet potentially far more revealing. Who, anyone, will be standing beside him when the cameras begin rolling? Tom Bower has been very clear about his position on this topic. When asked whether Harry could eventually return in some form of part-time royal role, Bower's response was direct. He does not see that as a likely outcome. That view has become a major talking point among royal commentators, especially as new speculation continues to build around Harry's future.
Generally in Britain is the marriage isn't going to last. Harry will, I'm afraid, still remain with you because his children are there. She kind of got him away from his friends and his relations into another country, and she could control him then, but he was kind of stuck with.
If the biographers and commentators discussing this situation are even partly correct, the image many people expect to see this summer could carry far more significance than it appears on the surface. For some observers, it could become a snapshot that fuels months of discussion and debate. Picture the scene many royal watchers are already talking about. Harry returns to a country he has often spoken about with affection. Harry focuses on the project most closely connected to his public identity and charitable work. Harry takes part in something that clearly matters to him and has been a major part of his life for years. But the question that keeps coming up is whether Meghan will be there alongside him. Of course, nobody knows what will happen until the event actually takes place. Any conclusions before then are simply speculation. Still, Many commentators believe Meghan's presence or absence could become one of the biggest storylines surrounding the entire occasion. This is what many observers say they'll be watching most carefully.
I think that seems to be the feeling here with Harry. He wants to build some bridges. I think his father is keen to reunite with him to see his grandchildren. William clearly is against it. The king is caught between the two brothers, and whatever he does, he's going to upset one of them. And it's a bit of a mess.
If Meghan chooses not to attend, some people may argue that it adds weight to the theories being discussed by commentators such as Bauer and Angela Levin. On the other hand, if she does attend, others may see that as evidence that the situation is more complicated than critics suggest, and not as straightforward as some headlines make it seem. Reports have also mentioned discussions about summer plans and possible UK visits connected to Invictus-related activities. According to those reports, Meghan was at one point expected to join Harry for events linked to the countdown toward the 2027 Invictus Games in Birmingham. Whether those reports ultimately prove accurate or not, July is shaping up to be an important moment because that is when months of speculation could finally meet reality.
Interesting that when there have been occasions where the king could have met Harry, I mean, not least in his recent visit to the States, that didn't happen. And I think there's always a suspicion that Harry will leak any encounter they have, and the story will be sold to the newspapers. So it is a bit of a mess. No one wants a dysfunctional family like that, but I'm afraid that is the story of the royal family. They can't seem to get on with each other.
And anyone expecting all the answers in advance may be disappointed. Public appearances involving high-profile figures are often planned carefully. Schedules can change. Announcements can arrive at the last minute. Statements can be prepared and released at precisely chosen times to shape the conversation. But there is one thing that is much harder to manage than a carefully written statement or a well-timed announcement: a live public appearance. Once the cameras are rolling and the world is watching, every detail is examined, every interaction is discussed, and every image can spark a whole new round of headlines and debate. When the day finally arrives,
all those things are kind of, again, undermined because of attention being focused on people like Harry and Andrew, when, there is so much good that they can do, but which gets ignored. So my experience is, talking to people, they're not anti-monarchy, but they are anti the monarchy abusing its status in order to make money for itself.
Everyone will see for themselves who is there and who isn't. Cameras will capture every moment. Photos will spread across news outlets and social media within hours, and people around the world will be studying the same images while drawing their own conclusions. That's exactly why events like this generate so much attention and spark so many conversations. Rumors can be denied, headlines can be challenged, official statements can be released, social media can present a carefully managed picture. But when a major public event unfolds in real time, people naturally focus on what they can actually see with their own eyes.
What happened with the Duke of Windsor is he did every so often come back and see his family, as long as his wife didn't come with him, and that we're going to see more of that. We have a sign that Harry may be able to come back and have security paid for by the taxpayer here, which will make him feel safe.
That's why so many observers believe this upcoming appearance could become a key moment in the ongoing debate surrounding Harry and Meghan. So let's go back to the word that has hovered over this entire discussion: untenable. When Tom Bauer uses that term, he is not necessarily predicting the end of the marriage, and many commentators discussing this story are not making that claim either. Publicly, representatives have pushed back against suggestions of serious problems. Meghan has continued speaking positively about her marriage, and it is entirely possible that Harry and Meghan could continue proving critics wrong for many years to come.
The couple are at a standoff over their summer. As well as the Balmoral trip, the plan had been for Meghan to join her husband in the UK in July for a one-year countdown event to the 2027 Invictus Games taking place in Birmingham. However, our source says Meghan has now told Harry to go without her. They add Meghan's bust-up with Harry was a big one, and she's digging her heels in. She's told Harry to go to the UK without her, as there was no way she would be joining. She doesn't want to put herself or the kids through the drama.
That possibility remains very much on the table. But when you strip away the dramatic headlines, endless online debates, and constant speculation, what remains is a much simpler question. Several well-known royal commentators have examined the same situation and arrived at broadly similar conclusions, even when approaching it from different angles. Bauer describes what he sees as an unfortunate crossroads. Angela Levin has argued that Harry and Meghan appeared to want a level of flexibility and influence that may not fit comfortably within the monarchy's traditional structure. Andrew Loney has also claimed that concerns were reportedly being discussed long before the wedding took place. Whether people agree with those assessments or not,
You've got the fact that the veterans in Invictus, because it's a special event for injured veterans, military people, served in the army, served in the navy, served in the air force, who have either mental health problems or indeed they've lost limbs, other issues, and they compete at the top level of competition. The problem you've got is those veterans are not happy because Invictus should be about them and their achievements, but it's about Harry and Meghan. So Invictus is a disaster.
they continue to be part of the wider conversation. The common thread connecting many of these observations is not necessarily conflict, it's priorities. On one side, there is Britain, family ties, royal connections, history, and the identity Harry grew up with. On the other side, there is California, independence, business opportunities, personal projects, and the life Meghan has built there. Add in financial pressures, major career decisions, public scrutiny, and different ideas about what the future should look like.
I don't think very long, because you have to look at the fact that Harry is losing out when it comes to his children.
And it becomes easier to understand why so many commentators keep describing the situation as a crossroads. That is the challenge these observers continue pointing toward: not a dramatic showdown, not a battle between heroes and villains, but the complicated reality of two people potentially trying to balance different goals while moving forward together. And now, all eyes turn to July. When that event arrives, what do you think we'll see? Will Meghan be standing beside Harry, putting some of these questions to rest? Or will her absence create an entirely new round of headlines, debate, and speculation?
I believe is very hurtful to Harry. He is starting to see now that he is missing out and his children are missing out, and that Meghan is controlling everything. And I feel, is feeling very regretful. He is looking at Meghan as someone that is controlling his life completely, despite how he feels. So it's just the beginning for him. It's going to get so much more worse.
The answer could shape the next chapter of this story and give royal watchers plenty to discuss in the weeks ahead. One thing is certain: when the cameras start rolling, the world will be paying attention, and every detail will be examined from every angle. What's your take on all of this? Do you think Harry and Meghan are simply navigating different priorities? Or do you believe the commentators are onto something bigger? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with friends and family who follow royal news.